everybody, and welcome to another episode of On Campus. I'm your host, Mariana Garrick, and today we have a special guest named Professor Rachel Smith.
Really glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, and thank you for coming out with us today.
You're welcome.
I'm going to ask you a couple questions about your profession, how you got into it, what you hope to do with the program, and what you want to do in the future with it as well. So how did you come about with everything?
Well, I come from a family of artists. I was lucky to be brought up around a lot of creativity, and I knew from a young age that I wanted to work in a creative profession. I also had pretty firsthand experience on how difficult it can be. So I was lucky to have some of that knowledge going in. I was actually a fine arts major in college. So I studied a lot of things like drawing and painting, which we also offer here. While still doing digital art, I became more serious about graphic design actually after college when I got my first job. I learned a lot of the skills on the fly because I had to, and I went back to school to get more of a knowledge base and more experience in the technical side of graphic design as well as teaching, because that's something I also knew I always wanted to do.
Was it something you're always interested in, or was it just it came about later on in life?
You know, I think it was something that I was always interested in, but as most people do, I explored a lot of other stuff besides arts, besides the arts and graphic design before realizing that this was something I wanted to kind of hone in on.
So why did you specifically become a professor? Why didn't you go to major companies, do graphic design work for them?
Yeah.
Why did you choose to become a professor here at Solano Community College?
I did work, and I still do freelance work as a graphic designer. So I have clients that I work for on a regular basis. Prior to teaching, I did work for startups. I worked for a couple nonprofits. I worked for University of California at Berkeley. But ultimately, I started teaching because I really enjoyed the community that happens in the classroom and on campuses. And I think it's a really great way to just share your skills. I think it's really rewarding. And I find it just a really exciting job because the students here are so great. Yeah.
I think that sounds absolutely amazing. So with all the programs that you teach and all the classes, can you tell the viewers what classes you actually do teach and what they can get from those classes from each one?
Yeah. Well, I teach graphic design 1 and 2. And in those classes, you can expect to get a pretty solid foundation of skills in a few Adobe programs. So Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop. Graphic Design 2 takes that to the next level and takes it into more of a space where you would be able to develop a professional portfolio. Actually, I'm really excited because next semester, Graphic Design 2, we're going to work on a project for the Maryland Museum. We're going to do a whole rebrand for them and logo, identity, signage. It's going to be really a great project that students can see their work out in the world. But I also teach animation, illustration, and typography, which focuses solely on letters, designing type, fonts, that kind of thing.
As a beginner for a student who's just starting out, what class do you recommend personally that they take?
So that's a great question because normally I would say Graphic Design 1, but we just are offering a new class this semester called Art D, and it's Art D 44. It's Intro to Digital Design, and it's meant for someone who has very little experience in using computers for this kind of work. So we're going to be starting out from scratch, teaching you the Macintosh interface, and if you can't take that, if people have commitments, we're also offering a 4-week design boot camp. So that starts in February. We've got the 8-week Intro to Digital Design. And then we've got a 16-week of it at nights on Mondays and Wednesdays. So Art D 44, that would be what I'd recommend.
Perfect. Yeah. So with all of these classes that you're teaching, what is your main goal for students to learn?
Well, I think at this point in time, graphic design, animation, and illustration are all really collaborative professions. And I think one of the things that I'm continuously working on with students is how to build your skills, obviously, because you need those technical skills, but also how to work with other people. A lot of design is empathy, and it's trying to understand someone else's point of view, working with the client and understanding that although you have the expertise and you have the point of view, you need to kind of merge that with theirs and come up with a solution that works for everyone.
So before, earlier, you were saying that your students have worked on a couple projects. They're going to work on the Mare Island Museum. They're going to be kind of completely renovating that, changing that around. What other projects has past students worked on and throughout all of your classes?
Yeah, we try to get actual clients working with our students because that's the kind of experience that they're going to get once they leave school. This semester, my graphic design 1 and 2 classes worked on, excuse me, a logo project for Eureka.org, which is a career planning website and great website for finding out what your skills are, job placement and training. We've also worked on a project, a major brand and identity project for the California Department of Child Support. And that was a pretty interesting project because we were one of 5 community colleges in the state that got to work on this project to rebrand California Department of Child Support. And it was really exciting. The students actually got to pitch to representatives from Ogilvy, which is a major ad agency, international and national presence. So it was really cool.
So that sounds kind of like a lot for a student to hear. What would you recommend to them, like, to kind of bring them into the program to kind of like ease their mind, make them feel comfortable? Because it sounds like a lot, but actually when you do it, I feel like it's not a lot. It's just all about the experience, correct?
Yeah, it's about the experience. I really stress that, you know, being a beginner at something is something that as a teacher, I always need to remember what it was like to be a beginner. I think it's really important to have that mindset all the time. But I would tell a student, you know, not to worry. We try to create a very positive environment in the classroom. And we try to create an environment that, you know, even if you have what you might consider to be less skills or maybe less experience, I want you to leave that class feeling like you created work that you're proud of. Yeah.
So what specific class and what specific program will help the student build a better portfolio for themselves in their later work ethic, jobs?
Yeah, specific class. So, well, basically we're working on creating a track for students to start where they start with Intro to Digital Design, they go to Graphic Design 1 and then 2. And if they want to do something with animation or if they're more interested in digital illustration, maybe character design, because a lot of students here are working towards something that, you know, maybe they work in the video game or animation industry, the illustration class, Illustration 1, would be what I would recommend. We also have Intro to Animation, and that'd be a great start for anyone who's looking to do motion design or animation. Yeah.
Is there anything like to tell any students out there who are just iffy about it?
Well, I would say that a big misconception with people who may not have been exposed to creative careers in the arts, they might not think that there are jobs in these fields. They might think that it's not a practical thing to study. But the great thing about commercial art and graphic design is that you can get work doing this. And if you want to transfer to a 4-year and maybe you decide, well, I don't want to be a graphic designer, those skills are really going to help you in school. Being able to present your work and your point of view is something that at a job or in a classroom is a really, really valuable skill. So either way, I would say that it's a viable, applicable class to take, whatever you want to do.
So in general, how can we find out more about all of these classes, all these amazing programs and projects that you have set up for the campus?
Yeah, well, we actually have a pretty good social media presence. We try to keep that updated with student work. If you're curious about projects that students do or maybe what we're up to, hours of operation, Solano College Arts on Instagram. We also have a presence on Facebook. You can reach me at rachel.smith@solano.edu. And yeah, I think we're also online. If you look for classes at Solano, it's not art, it's Art D. So those are the new classes that are listed under Art D.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first, folks. We're going to wrap this up. I'd like to thank you again for being here today, being with us and telling everyone about the amazing classes you're going to provide and teach. Again, thank you so much. And so that's been it, folks. Thank you for everything, and thank you for tuning in for another episode of On Campus. And I'm your host, Mariana Garrick, and thank you so much for being here, Professor
Thanks so
Rachel
much.
Smith.